Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we are now beginning chapter 6. And this is significant because Prabhupada writes in one of his purports that Bhagavad-gita, consisting of 18 chapters, is divided into 3 sections, 6 chapters each. So with today's class, if we finish the chapter, we will have finished the first third. That is a great cause of celebration. Prabhupada says the middle 6 chapters, 7 through 12, are the most confidential chapters. So the first 6 and the last 6 act as protective coverings of the middle 6. So this is chapter 6, and in the colophon, or at the end of the Bhagavad-gita, it is described as Atma Samyama Yoga. Atma Samyama Yoga means controlling the self. So that is the subject matter of this chapter, controlling the self. And the Sanskrit word for self is Atma. Now we learn from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya was instructing Sanatan Goswami 62 different explanations of the famous Atmarama shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam. And so Lord Chaitanya described each of the 11 words very, very elaborately, and then combined them to come up with 61 different explanations of the Atmarama verse. So Lord Chaitanya begins by quoting from the Vishvaprakash Sanskrit dictionary, very, very authorized Sanskrit dictionary. And we have 7 different meanings of the word Atma. Number 1, the body. Number 2, the mind. Number 3, absolute truth. 4, natural characteristics. 5, firmness. 6, intelligence. And lastly, endeavor. So, the word Atma in this chapter is going to mostly refer to the mind. So, controlling the self begins with controlling the mind. So, the mind and senses, that is what real yoga practice is. In America, I don't know about there in Cologne, but yoga is very popular. They have so many different kinds of yoga. Hot yoga, cold yoga, boga yoga. They have so many kinds of yoga. Hollywood yoga. Most of them are concoctions. They have nothing to do what Krishna explains here in 6th chapter. So Prabhupada calls this chapter Dhyana Yoga, the linking by meditation, by concentrating on Krishna in the heart. And I've broken this chapter out into different subsections. So the first 4 verses I have entitled Renunciation. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anasrita Karma Phalang Karyam Karma Karotiya Sa Sanyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of one's work and who works as obligated is in the renounced order of life and is the true mystic, not the one who lights no fire and performs no duty. So this is picking up from previous statements that were made in chapter 3, 4, and 5. Again, to solidify that. Many people think that the way to become free from karma reaction, the way to become free from sinful life, is to perform no activities whatsoever. That is the impersonalist school. You stop all activity, therefore you don't create any karma. But here, as Krishna previously objected, no, that is not the way to counteract the reactions. Because, as he explained in chapter 3, the soul is always active. So here Krishna is pointing out what is the real solution. You do your work, but you're not attached to the fruit. And you work as obligated, either as a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or as Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. So we're all Grihasthas. So if we execute our prescribed duties and we live a proper life, not committing sinful activities, Krishna says, for you, that's the renounced order. You're not attached and you're working as obligated. Let's continue. Yang samyasam iti prahur yogam tang vidi pandava nahi asanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, one can never become a yogi unless one renounces the desire for sense gratification. So two things here. If you are actually renounced, then you are linked with the Supreme, yoga. Now there are many, many yogas, but the one recommended in conclusion of Bhagavad-gita is Bhakti Yoga, centered around hearing and chanting. So, renunciation simply means you're linked with God. Then he says, unless you do renounce the desire for sense gratification, you're not a yogi. So that is why all these American yogas, they're not yoga, because their aim is sense gratification, not spiritual. 90% of them, they're not interested in linking with the Supreme. What to speak of give up sense gratification? Most of these people are doing yoga what? So that they can be fit and healthy and engage in better sex life. That's not the goal of yoga. Then now you become stout and strong so that you can enjoy in better sense gratification. No. You have to give up the desire for sense gratification. That is what it means to be a yogi. Let's continue. Avrarukshar manir yogam karma karanam uchyate yoga rudasya tasyaiva shama karanam uchyate. For one who is a neophyte or beginner in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. So what is that work? Well, there are different processes. In the beginning, you have to perform the different asanas and breathing exercises. That is work. And you have to do it so many times. So once you're beginning yoga and you're learning the different poses and the different breathing techniques, that is a kind of work. So this is what Krishna is saying. Real yoga, this is the beginning. You're working. And for one who was already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. Again, not that I'm doing yoga so I can enjoy better sense gratification. No, the real mark of a yogi is that material activities, sense gratification, is lessening. I've given the example so many times. It's like a scale. You put something on this side, the other side goes up. So, you cannot have an increase in spiritual life and an increase in material life. One has to go down and then the other goes up. That is real yoga process. You're lessening, you're decreasing your material involvement, thus allowing you to increase your spiritual involvement. Or another example, one of the symptoms of the coronavirus is you get a very severe fever. That's how you know one of the symptoms. You get this severe fever. So when you get a fever, the job is to bring it down. So in the mode of passion, enjoying sense gratification, the material fever is high. But once you come to practicing real yoga, bona fide yoga, the material fever has to come down. If that material fever is not coming down, there's something wrong with your yoga process. That's how you can, same way. You know, when you have a fever, you do so many things to bring the fever down. When the fever is down, now you know, good. So the same way, yoga means to bring the material fever of sense gratification, bring it down. Mode of goodness, shanti. When you're in shanti, you don't have a material fever. Passion, sense gratification, running here, doing this, partying, enjoying, running around, killing yourself to make money. No, mode of goodness, and that's what's needed to practice yoga. You have to become shanti. We'll see as the chapter progresses what is real yoga. Yada hinendriyarteshu na karmasvanusajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudastadochyate. A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, one neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. Again, you judge a thing by its result. Someone is elevated in yoga, they're not pursuing more and more material desires, they're not engaging in sense gratification, they're not engaging in fruitive activities. They're engaged in yoga. So now we come to the next section, verses 5 through 10. Atma as the mind. In the beginning, I gave you 7 definitions of Atma. So like I said, this chapter is mostly dealing with the word Atma in terms of the mind. Udared Atmanatmanam Natmanam avasadayit Atmaiva hi Atmano Bandur Atmaiva Ripur Atmanaha. One must deliver oneself with the help of one's mind and not degrade oneself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and the enemy as well. So in any yoga that you do, Raja Yoga, Kriya Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, they all have one similar characteristic: controlling the mind. That has to be there. If there is no controlling of the mind, you're not doing yoga, you're doing bhoga. Yoga means controlling the mind. And once the mind is controlled, automatically the senses will follow. So, we have the mind. The mind is supposed to deliver us, not degrade us, not entangle. So if the mind is uncontrolled, then my mind is my worst enemy. But if my mind is controlled, then it's my best friend. Bandur atmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanajita anatmanastu shatrutve bharte tatmaiva shatruvat. For one who has conquered the mind is best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, one's mind will remain the greatest enemy. So, conquer your mind, it becomes your best friend. Let the mind go, it will do you in. Chitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita shitosna sukadukeshu tatamana pamanayo. For one who has conquered the mind, the supersoul is already reached. For one has attained tranquility. Shanti, that's tranquility. Calm, peaceful. You get that by controlling your mind. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So this is what it means to be tranquil or equilibrium. Let's take a break here. Jnana vijnana triptatma kutasto vijitendriya yukta iti uchate yogi samalaustrashma kanchana. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when one is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. One sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. So, when you're self-realized, you're not interested in the dualities of the material world, because you understand that you are no longer interested in temporary things. You want eternal things. To be self-realized means you're only interested in Sat, that which is eternal. You're not interested in what is Asat, or temporary things. So that's another mark of being self-realized. The material world is a world of duality, but when you're situated in transcendence, you're above the duality. You're not concerned because you're situated in eternal transcendence. Surin mitrari dasina madhyasta vesha bandushu sadushvapi cha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. A person is considered still further advanced when one regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, the envious, the friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind. Again, this is the material platform. All these different kinds of personalities are simply demonstrations of the dualities in the material world. When you're in transcendence, when you're self-realized, you don't see these distinctions. Another way to explain this: when Hiranyakashipu was challenging his son Prahlad, Prahlad told his father, "My dear father, you want me to go to your school and learn all these things, friends, enemies, politics, diplomacy? No, I'm not interested in these things." And Prahlad told his father, "Actually, there are no enemies. You think Lord Vishnu is your enemy because Lord Varaha had killed Hiranyakashipu's brother, Hiranyaksha. And because of that, Hiranyakashipu hated Lord Vishnu and maintained that enmity throughout his whole life." So Prahlad was telling his father, you think Lord Vishnu is your enemy. And Prahlad told his father, but actually, your only enemy is your own uncontrolled mind and senses. Prahlad was giving him what we just studied in this chapter. The mind is the best of friends when it's controlled, and the mind is the greatest enemy when it's uncontrolled. So Prahlad was telling that to his father. Your only enemy, you think that Lord Vishnu is your enemy. No, the only enemy is your own uncontrolled mind and senses. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanang rahasi stita ekaki yata chittatma nirashir aparigraha. A transcendentalist should always engage the body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. That's yoga. When your body, your mind, everything is in connection with the Supreme God, you're a transcendentalist. One should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control the mind. Again, it's going to be repeated. Control the mind. One should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So all these symptoms are the symptoms of someone who is a real transcendentalist. Now we go through the next 9 verses, which is entitled, How to Practice Yoga. So as I said before, what Krishna is going to explain here is not what's going on here in America in any of these yoga societies. Far from it. Krishna is going to give a summary of the yoga system. Summary. Shuchau deshe pratishtapya stiram asanam atmana nat yushritang nat tinichang chailajana kushotaram tatrai kagrang manakritva yata chittendriya kriya upavishyasane yunjad yogamatma vishuddhaye. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place, not a yoga studio, and should lay kusha grass on the ground. I don't think they use kusha grass in these yoga studios. Then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling one's mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Now you tell me if there's any yoga studio that you know of that is teaching this. Practice yoga to purify the heart. How? How do you purify the heart? Controlling the mind, senses, and activities. Lord Chaitanya's Shikshastakam prayer begins with this: Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Purifying or cleansing the heart, the consciousness, the mind. Look where I'm pointing. We discussed this before. Not this. Here. Because this is where the soul is. The soul is not here. The soul is here in the heart. And the soul is covered by the subtle material body, mind, intelligence, ego, contaminated consciousness. So here is the beginning. So Lord Chaitanya's first instruction, purify the heart. And Krishna's by how? Controlling the mind, senses, and activities, and fixing the mind on one point. When we do japa, we're fixing the mind on the sound, the transcendental sound vibration. We are also doing yoga. This is japa yoga, or mantra yoga if it's done correctly. You're fixing your mind on one point. What is that point? Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. That's it. You're concentrating on the syllables. 32 syllables, 16 words, 3 seeds. Hare Krishna Rama. Samankaya Shiro Gribang Dharayan Achalang Stira Sampreksha Nasikagrang Swang Dishaschana Valokayang Pashantatma Vigatabir Brahmachari Bhartestita Manak Sangyam Mamachchito Yukta Asita Matparaha. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Not so easy, is it? I can't do it. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, and look at this one, completely free from sex life. How many of these Hollywood yoga people are completely freed from sex life? I don't think so. One should, and here's the next thing, one should meditate upon me within the heart. That's possibly the most important item. Meditating on Krishna within the heart. As you see the screen behind me, you see the yogi in the lower corner. And what is he meditating? Paramatma. That's what behind me. That's real yoga as being explained by Krishna. And make me the ultimate goal of life. That's what it means to give up sense gratification. You can give up sense gratification when you make Krishna the ultimate goal of your life. Yunjan evang sadatmanang yogi niyatamanasa shantim nirvana paramang matsangstang adhikachyati. Thus practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist with regulated mind attains to the kingdom of God by cessation of material existence. Let me give you something that I think you can all appreciate. Some of you, you're part of the Rath Yatra team, right? So that's a few months. And for those few months, that's all you're thinking about. Because to do the Rath Yatra in Panama, it's not that they'll wake up one morning we do Rath Yatra. No. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks of planning, working. Am I right, Shrilesh? Right? I think you told me it takes, 4 months? Is that right? So you get an idea, during those 4 months, you're locked in. Yes, you're doing all your other things, but the main thing you're thinking about during those 4 months, how are we going to put on Rath Yatra? So for those 4 months, you are doing exactly what's explained here. Constantly. To do that, you have to control your body, mind, and activities. So you're getting a glimpse of that when you do the Rath Yatra. May you go on doing. And I heard a rumor that you're going to do Rath Yatra in Cologne. Yes. Cologne Rath Yatra ki jai. And it'll be better than Panama City. Yes. Because now you're learning this 6th chapter. I'm giving you the clues. Nat yashnatastu yogosti, nachaikantam manashnataha, nachati swapna shilasya, jagrato naivacharjuna. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. Balance. That's what it means to be a yogi. Balance. You eat. It's like here in America, all the gas stations, you fill up your car, and there's a sign there. All the gas stations have it. Don't top off. And you see people still there doing that they want those last few drops in their car. But the sign says don't top off. So similarly with eating, don't top off. Of course, I'm not one who should talk on this point. But if you're going to be a yogi, you eat what is needed to fill up the gas tank. And don't sleep too much, get enough sleep. Why do you need sleep? I will tell you why you need sleep. Kapila Dev points out that sleep is necessary to have good intelligence. And recently here in America, even the ordinary doctors are telling the students that the night before the exam, you should get sufficient rest. So they are learning this technique that yes, in order for the intelligence to be sharp, you need proper rest. But too often, what are the students doing? Cramming up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And then the next day they try to take the exam and they're like shot. They can't do it. Why? They didn't get the intelligence needs proper sleep. So you young students, make sure you get enough rest so that your intelligence is in proper order. Yuktahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnava bodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. One who is regulated in habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So regulate. Regulate your eating. Don't eat too much. Eat what you need. Don't sleep too much, but get proper sleep. Yes, you're allowed some recreation. That is good. Keep the body physically fit, that kind of recreation. And don't become a workaholic. You all have jobs, all right? Do the necessary work, but don't make work your religion. Balance. Have a balance in your life. Spend time with the family. Not that I'm working 24 hours a day and I'm neglecting the family. No. Regulated, this is what Krishna is recommending. Regulation in eating, sleeping, recreation, and work. Do your job, okay, but then come home. Spend time with the family. Yada vinyatang chittam atmanyeva bhatishtate nispriha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. And when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines the mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, one is said to be well established in yoga. Again, how do you know that you're making advancement? Your material desires, your material entanglement is coming down. The material fever is coming down. When I say material fever, that means the gusto, the interest to enjoy sense gratification. That has to be coming down. Yatha dipo nivatasto nengate sopamasmrita yogino yatta chittasya yunjato yogam atmanaha. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in meditation on the transcendental self. So, another symptom of a true transcendentalist. The mind is always controlled, like that lamp in a windless place. It's always working on controlling the mind. The next 4 verses is entitled The Perfection of Yoga. So we've heard the process. Now Krishna is showing you, here's the perfection. Yatro paramate chittang niruddhang yoga sevaya yatra chaivat manatmanang pashan atmani tushyati sukam atyantikam yattad buddhigrayam matindriyam veti yatram nachavayang titaschalati tatpataha yang labdva chaparang labhang manyate nadikam tata yasmin sthito nadukena gurunapi vichalyate tang vidya dukkha sangyoga viyogam yoga sangitam. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. Didn't say spiritual activities, restrained from material mental activities. Spiritual mental activities have to be there because we already studied. Krishna said, fix your mind upon me and make me the ultimate goal of life. So there has to be spiritual mental activities. That is samadhi. You restrain it from material mental activities. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the purified mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. So, how long should you do yoga? Till you get to this state. When you see who you really are. And to see who you really are, you have to also see Krishna. You don't see who you really are unless you actually see Krishna. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. Upon gaining this, one thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So this is what it means to achieve perfection in yoga. You're in such a joyous state. How? You're enjoying your real self, not the self you see in the mirror, the real you. And you're enjoying through transcendental senses, purified senses. And you don't come down, you don't depart from the truth. You remain fixed. And then you think, there is nothing greater. I sometimes give this analogy. Say someone was to come up to Radharani, or for my good friend, yes. So if you ask Rukmini, I will give you $10 trillion if you reject Krishna. What do you think Rukmini would say? Rukmini would curse that person. She would curse that person. Why? Because Rukmini has Krishna. There's nothing greater. If someone was to come up to Srimati Radharani, oh Radha, if you reject Krishna, I will give you everything that you would want. Radharani will throw a thunderbolt at that person. Why? She's never going to give up Krishna, because she already has the greatest thing, the topmost thing. Okay, I'll give you another practical example. You men, you all have automobiles, yes? You drive cars, right? So if somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I have this little toy truck, why don't you take this? You'll laugh at that person. Toy truck? I have my own car. What am I going to do with a toy truck? It's useless to me. I already have a car. So when you have the topmost thing, you're not interested in anything inferior. This was already mentioned in chapter 2. Parang dristva nivartate. To get the higher taste. That's what spiritual life is all about. Currently, people have a material taste, sense gratification. They're living for sense gratification. But once you become a devotee and you are gradually coming to this stage, you're not interested in these low-grade pleasures, because now you have something higher. All right, there's one more section, and then we will end today's class, and we'll have to finish the rest of the chapter next week. This final section in this chapter, verses 24 through 32, finer parts of yoga. Sanishchayena yoktavyo yoga nirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamangs tyaktvar sarvan asheshataha manasai vendriya gramang viniyam yam samantataha. One should engage in the practice of yoga with determination and faith. Very important. When you do japa, it should not be done half-heartedly. It should be done with determination. There are two kinds of chanting. Here's one kind. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Then there's proper Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. That's called determination. And faith. Yes, you should have faith in this process of Krishna consciousness and not be deviated from the path. That's Maya's job. Maya's job is to deviate you. Oh, you don't want to chant japa now. You want to go watch the soccer match. That's what Maya does. She's always trying to deviate you. No, stay determined. Remain faithful. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation. This has been mentioned 3-4 times already in this chapter because it's such an important point. Abandon material desires and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, controlled by this purified mind. Shanai Shanayar Uparamed Buddhya Driti Grihitaya Atma Sangstang Manakritva Nakinchid Apichintayat. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction. So you're going to have to learn how to use your intelligence. And where do you get intelligence from? Bhagavad-gita, spiritual master, the Shastras, and also other saintly devotees. That's where you're going to get intelligence from. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and nothing else. Yato nischal. The reason why I'm coughing is my wife is cooking downstairs, and she's cooking with ghee, and the aroma is coming up the stairs, and the ghee is so powerful, it's going right through my lungs, so sorry. Blame my wife. Yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaitad atmanyeva vashang nayit. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. This verse is the secret of japa. This verse. Because that's what happens when you start doing japa. You're trying to chant, but what happens? The mind goes all over the universe. So as soon as you notice the mind has wandered, Hare Krishna, you loudly chant and bring the rascal mind back. Bring it back under your control. Don't let your mind wander. As soon as you notice, bring it back. Prashanta manasang hyenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutam makalmasham. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. Same thing we've been saying. When you have Krishna, you have the topmost. Such a yogi is beyond the mode of passion. She's making a chance right now. That's what's happening. You know what is a chance in the doll? Oh God. In fact, she made a bomb. That chance is this coming up the stairs. Whew. Such a yogi is beyond the mode of passion. The yogi realizes one's qualitative identity with the Supreme, not quantity. No, we'll never be equal to Krishna in all respects. We're equal to Krishna in quality. Krishna is spiritual, the soul is spiritual. That is how we are one. Not that I'm going to be able to lift Govardhan Hill. No. Krishna is unlimitedly powerful. I can be minutely powerful. But Krishna and I are equal in the sense that Krishna is spirit and me, the soul, is also spirit. Thus one is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Yunjan nevang sadatmanang yogi vigatakal masha sukena brahmasang sparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Sarva bhutastam atmanang sarva tutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So yes, philosophically we understand Krishna is in my heart, Krishna is in everyone's heart. That much transcendental understanding I must have. Krishna is in everyone's heart. Yomang pasyati sarvatra sarvang chamai pasyati tasyahang na pranasyami satyame na pranasyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost. nor is one ever lost to me. Sarva bhutastitang yomang bhajat ye katvam astita sarvata vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. So, Bhishma Dev on his deathbed said, the one Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. And the example is, envision a field, a big field, and you have 1,000 water pots filled with water. And it's the noon time. The sun is shining noontime in Cologne. So if you look in those 1,000 pots, what will you see in the water? You will see the reflection of the sun in every part. In the same way, there's one Krishna, but he's reflecting in everyone's heart. That is the vision of a devotee and a true yogi. God is in everyone's heart. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samang pasyati yorjuna sukam bhaya diva dukam so yogi paramo mata. One is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to one's own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. As Krishna said in chapter 2, the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead, because nobody actually dies. Simply we are changing bodies. Simply we are changing automobiles. Simply we are changing clothes. Right now, Jivan, he's wearing a red shirt. I'm wearing my dark blue Krishna shirt. Tomorrow, I'll wear a different color shirt, but that doesn't change me. Tomorrow, Jivan will wear a different shirt. He'll be the same Jivan. Okay? So, what's happening to everybody, everybody's getting the results of their own activities. There's no reason to lament, because by the law of Krishna, everybody's getting exactly what they deserve. Why? Because that's the law of karma. As you act, you will get a certain result. One time, somebody asked me, Prabhu, I go to temple, I'm a good person, but how come my neighbor, he doesn't go to temple, and he does all kinds of sinful things, and he's living a very, very opulent life, and here I am living a pious Hindu life, and I'm barely able to make the rent. So I told my friend, I said, no. That rascal person who's living high off the hog, don't worry. His day is coming. You want Krishna to act, hey Krishna, come on, smash that guy. Doesn't work that way. Krishna allows everyone to go on for some time, but eventually the bill is due. So don't worry about this guy. This guy is getting away with all kinds of nonsense. Don't worry. Sooner or later, the bill will have to be paid. Everybody gets what they deserve. Don't worry about it. So you just do your prescribed duties. Be a good devotee. Krishna will take care of the rest. All right. So I want to sing the prayers to Lord Nrsimha. And before I forget, again I want to thank Jivan Kumar for his donation last week. And we also had a very nice donation from someone who wishes to remain anonymous, so I can't mention their name, but they know who they are. So I also want to thank you and bless you, and anyone, Jairam, you also, all of you have given donations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May Krishna bless you. Let's do Nrsimha prayers. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Klada Dayane Hiranya Kashi Oravakshaha Shila Tangana Thalaye Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimha Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha Bahir Nrsimha Hridaye Nrsimha Nrsimha Madim Sharanam Prapadye Nrsimha Madim Sharanam Prapadye Tavakara Kamala Bhare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Chanubringam Keshavadrita Narhari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadish Jaya Jagadish Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare